Hello everyone, and welcome to my bold and the beautiful official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. At the Oceanside house, Bill and Poppy made out in the room, and he guaranteed her that they were distant from everyone else. In the family room, Luna was dazzled that it was actually RJ's place. RG answered that it was her place as well, since they would invest a ton of energy there in private. Luna was anxious in the new house and inquired as to whether RG had heard a commotion. He hadn't heard it, yet he calculated that giving her a visit through the spot could make her more agreeable. After Luna and RG visited the grounds and returned inside, RG said he saw them investing a ton of energy before the fire pit. He detected that a ton of astonishing things would occur there, beginning that evening. They kissed and were happy to at long last be separated from everyone else without any interferences. Luna saw that there was one room RJ hadn't shown her yet, and his eyebrows rose in interest. Luna and RJ kissed, yet she pulled away. He asked what was off base. Luna couldn't shake the inclination that something was off base and that she ought not be there. RG attempted to get Luna to unwind and keep a temperament, yet she demanded that something didn't have a right outlook on being there. In the room, Poppy said to see Bill, yet Bill liked to check her out. He actually couldn't completely accept that he was embracing her after such a long time separated. He didn't really accept that it was irregular. He accepted she had gotten back to his life on purpose. Frightened by a commotion, Poppy raced to the entryway. She murmured that she'd heard voices in the other room, and she accepted one of the voices was her little girl. Bill profoundly questioned an understudy adequately made to lease that house. Bill reached Wyatt and found that RG Forrester had leased the house and had the key. Sure that Luna was there, Poppy mixed to get dressed. At Forrester, Thomas and Steffi showed up subsequent to visiting Eric. Detecting his sister's concern, Thomas said Eric would be all right. In spite of the fact that Thomas and Finn had their disparities, Thomas was appreciative that Finn had saved Eric's life. She answered that it was an extraordinary day for their granddad, and they expected to observe Finn as well, despite the fact that Finn would agree that he'd been taking care of his business. Thomas answered that Eric had seen different specialists, and they hadn't given Eric any expectation. Steffi contemplated that it had been an exploratory treatment that different specialists could have been suspicious of. Thomas and Steffi were happy for Finn's willfulness and assurance. Commenting that Eric was incredibly still up in the air, Thomas calculated their granddad would recover soon. Steffi answered that Finn would have rather not assumed praise, yet he realized the gift he'd given them. Steffi reviewed that she had huge confidence in Finn, and that hadn't made things simple for Edge. Thomas and Steffi were happy that they'd convinced Edge to have confidence in Finn as well. Thomas said he didn't necessarily concur with his sister's viewpoints, however she could be really influential. She answered that she recalled that he said that. As Steffi arranged to go see Finn, Thomas requested that she let Finn in on how appreciative Thomas was, in spite of their new contrasts. Steffi answered that Finn did the things he did on the grounds that he was roused to help. Her significant other's craving to have an effect was one of the numerous things she cherished about him. In Finn's office, Lai showed up, smiling about Eric's delivery from the emergency clinic. She respected Finn for working diligently saving more lives. Finn answered that Eric's recuperation was a collaboration, and it would be impossible without Eric's assurance. Lai let her child know that he could minimize his job however much he needed, yet as a specialist, she knew how serious Eric's condition had been. She additionally knew the lengths Finn had gone to for Eric. Finn answered that he needed to make every effort on the grounds that Eric meant a lot to Steffi. Noticing that his mom's help was critical to him, Finn expressed that Luna and Poppy could utilize some of it as well. Lai glared. He didn't get why she didn't need a relationship with his auntie, who was so sweet. Rankled, Lai answered that Poppy had idealized her routine so she could fall into the arms of a rich man. Finn said it was absurd of Lai to rebuff Poppy for the past. Lai asserted that she was simply being defensive of her family, something Finn ought to appreciate. Lai professed to know the sort of individual Poppy was, yet Finn asked what the past had to do with who Poppy was that day. He said he'd been investing energy with Luna, and she just had beneficial comments about her mom. Lai expressed gratitude toward God that Poppy had kept her way of life and cravings stowed away from her girl. Lai demanded that her sister partook in the organization of rich, more established men. Declining to permit Poppy to welcome disgrace on the family once more, Lai stated that she'd cautioned her sister not to go chasing after a friendly benefactor in Los Angeles. Afterward, Finn was distant from everyone else with Steffi kissing, and they concurred that it was critical to set aside a few minutes for things like that. The point went to Eric, who looked great to Steffi, considering. Finn advised her that there was a best approach and more achievements but Eric to hit. She said it had been a wonder that Eric was home. The last time she'd been in that house, she'd been expressing farewell to Eric, yet that day they'd been inviting Eric back. Finn answered that Eric, Steffi, and her whole family had gotten it going with their requests and backing. Steffi said they'd done what they could, yet it had been Finn who'd saved Eric, very much like Finn had saved her years back. She streaked back to the second they'd initially met, and Steffi said he'd transformed her. He'd never abandoned her. More flashbacks of Steffi and Finn's relationship played, from their commitment to when they'd found each other again after he'd been assumed dead. Steffi communicated how appreciative she was for Finn, and she communicated energy for what was ahead. He answered that they'd changed one another, and she was left with him until the end of time. They kissed. Finn replied that Eric, Steffi, and her entire family had made it happen with their prayers and support. Steffi said they'd done what they could, but it had been Finn who'd saved Eric, just like Finn had saved her years back. She flashed back to the moment they'd first met, and Steffi said he'd changed her life. He'd never given up on her. Finn replied that Eric, Steffi, and her entire family had made it happen with their prayers and support. Steffi said they'd done what they could, but it had been Finn who'd saved Eric, just like Finn had saved her years back. She flashed back to the moment they'd first met, and Steffi said he'd changed her life. He'd never given up on her. More flashbacks of Steffi and Finn's relationship played, from their engagement to when they'd found each other again after he'd been presumed dead. Steffi expressed how grateful she was for Finn, and she expressed excitement for what was ahead. He replied that they'd changed each other, and she was stuck with him forever. They kissed. Finn replied that Eric, Steffi, and her entire family had made it happen with their prayers and support. Steffi said they'd done what they could, but it had been Finn who'd saved Eric, just like Finn had saved her years back. She flashed back to the moment they first met, and Steffi said he'd changed her life. He'd never given up on her. More flashbacks of Steffi and Finn's relationship played, from their engagement to when they'd found each other again after he'd been presumed dead. Steffi expressed how grateful she was for Finn, and she expressed excitement for what was ahead. He replied that they'd changed each other, and she was stuck with him forever. They kissed. More flashbacks of Steffi and Finn's relationship played, from their engagement to when they'd found each other again after he'd been presumed dead. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, so please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.